Dr. Velterra stared at her computer screen in the quiet research lab. The blue lights from her workstation cast strange shadows on her scaled face. She had been working alone for 3 months on this project, comparing how long different alien species lived across the galaxy. It was supposed to be boring work, just numbers and charts. But what she found in the human medical files made her stop breathing. The data made no sense. According to every record she could access, human babies were born after only 10 galactic months inside their mothers. 10 months. Her own people, the Zentari, carried their young for 3 full years before birth. Even the weakest species in the galaxy managed at least 18 months. Velterra clicked through file after file. Human infants emerged unable to walk, talk, or even see properly. They could not feed themselves or protect themselves from danger. By any reasonable measure, they should die within hours of birth. Any other species would consider such early birth a tragedy, a sign that something had gone terribly wrong. She pulled up videos from human colonies. The sight made her feel sick. Tiny human creatures lay helpless in small beds, completely dependent on their parents for everything. They could not even lift their own heads. She watched one video of a human infant that was 6 weeks old. It still could not roll over by itself. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. Her translator device hummed softly as it converted her native clicks and whistles into standard galactic language. But then she looked at the longevity charts. Her secondary hearts began beating faster. Humans lived an average of 150 standard years. Many lived longer. Some records showed humans reaching 200 years of age. Her own people rarely lived past 90 years, despite their perfectly developed babies and superior biology. She ran the numbers again and again. The pattern held true across every human world, every genetic group, every possible variable she could think of. Humans were born ridiculously early by galactic standards, yet they outlived almost everyone. Velterra stood up and paced around her small office. This changed everything. For 200 years, the galactic community had treated humans as a fragile species that needed protection. Their early birth and helpless infants were seen as proof that they were weak, barely able to survive without help from more advanced civilizations. She accessed more files. Human colonies existed on worlds that other species had declared uninhabitable. Humans worked in radiation levels that would kill most aliens. They adapted to new environments faster than any other species on record. The lab door slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Thexion entered, his crystal body reflecting the blue lights like a living prism. His people, the Alterians, were considered one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. "Dr. Velterra," he said in his musical voice, "Central Command has flagged your research requests. You have been accessing protected human medical data for weeks. This requires an explanation." Velterra turned to face him, her gill slits fluttering with excitement. "Commander, I believe we have made a fundamental error in our understanding of human biology." "What do you mean?" She gestured to her screens full of data. "We have always assumed that human early birth was a weakness, a sign of poor evolutionary development. We thought their helpless infants proved they were a fragile species." Commander Thexion moved closer, his crystalline form humming softly. "That assessment has guided our policies for centuries. Humans are listed as a protected species requiring careful monitoring and assistance." "But look at this," Velterra said, bringing up her charts. "Humans consistently outlive species with far superior biology. They adapt to environments that kill other races. They learn and grow in ways that should be impossible." She showed him video files from human colonies. Children who could speak multiple languages before they were 10 years old. Teenagers who solved mathematical problems that stumped adult aliens. Elderly humans who remained active and sharp-minded at ages when other species had been dead for decades. "I have been studying the Thompson family on New Yorkshire colony," she continued. "Their infant daughter Lucy was born 3 months ago. She should be dead by our standards. Instead, she is developing at an incredible rate. Her brain is growing and forming connections in ways we have never observed." Commander Thexion was quiet for a long moment. "You are suggesting their early birth is not a weakness?" "I am suggesting it may be the greatest evolutionary advantage in galactic history," Velterra replied. "Think about it. Other species are born with fully developed brains, limited by the size constraints of their mothers' bodies. Humans are born early, allowing their brains to grow and develop outside the womb, unconstrained by physical limitations." She pulled up more data. "Their extended childhood creates the longest learning period of any known species. While our young are born with instincts and genetic memories, human children learn everything from their environment. This makes them infinitely adaptable. The implications were staggering. Commander Thexion processed the information with growing alarm. If this is true, then humans are not the vulnerable species we believe them to be. No, Velterra said quietly. They may be the most dangerous species in the galaxy, disguised as the most helpless. She thought about all the human colonies spreading across space, all the human traders and diplomats and scientists living far longer than their alien counterparts, accumulating knowledge and experience across generations. What the galaxy had seen as weakness might actually be strength beyond imagination. I need to present this to the Galactic Medical Council, she said. The entire galaxy needs to know what we have discovered. Commander Thexion nodded slowly. Prepare your report, Doctor. This changes everything we thought we knew about humanity. As he left her lab, Velterra turned back to her screens. The data was clear, undeniable, and terrifying. Humans were not the fragile creatures everyone believed them to be. They were something far more remarkable and potentially dangerous than anyone had imagined. Dr. Velterra stood at the edge of the forest on New Yorkshire Colony, watching the Thompson family through her observation equipment. 3 months had passed since her discovery, and now she had permission to study humans directly. Her research team included Dr. Quintar from Rigel 7 and Professor Zimera from the Centauri system. All 3 scientists were hidden behind advanced cloaking technology, invisible to human detection. James Thompson walked out of his small farmhouse carrying his daughter Lucy. The baby was now 6 months old and still could not sit up by herself. Dr. Quintar made a disgusted sound through their communication system. This is disturbing, he transmitted to his colleagues. Among my people, our young can hunt small prey within hours of birth. This human infant cannot even control her own head movements. Velterra adjusted her recording equipment. Document everything, she told her team. We need to understand how they survived this vulnerability. They watched as Emma Thompson, the mother, spent her entire morning focused on the baby. She fed Lucy, cleaned her, sang to her, and carried her everywhere. The father joined them when he returned from checking their crops. Both parents seemed to find joy in these simple activities. The resource investment is incredible, Professor Zimera observed. Her tentacles writhed with anxiety as she recorded data. Both parents sacrificed productive time to care for one helpless offspring. This should lead to economic collapse. But the Thompson family was thriving. Their farm produced more food than they needed. Their older children, 8-year-old Sophie and 12-year-old David, helped with both farming and baby care. Even the grandparents who lived in a nearby house visited daily to assist with Lucy. Dr. Quintar focused his sensors on young David Thompson. The older offspring display remarkable abilities, he reported. This 12-year-old human can operate complex machinery, speak 3 different languages, and perform mathematical calculations that would challenge adults in most species. The team moved to observe other families. The Williams household had a 2-year-old named Michael who was just learning to walk. By galactic standards, he should have been capable of independent survival months ago. Instead, he required constant supervision and care. Yet Michael was developing in ways that fascinated the alien researchers. He could understand complex instructions, recognize hundreds of different objects, and communicate his needs clearly. His brain was obviously growing and learning at an incredible rate. This is the key, Velterra realized during one of their evening conferences. The extended dependency period allows for massive brain development. Their skulls are not fully formed at birth, giving room for continued growth. They began tracking adult humans to understand the long-term results of this strange development pattern. Dr. Robert Hayes worked as a terraforming engineer on the colony. He had lived on 7 different worlds during his 40-year career, adapting to each new environment with apparent ease. The research team watched him solve a water shortage problem that had puzzled the colonial government for months. Hayes spent 2 days studying the local geology, then designed a completely new irrigation system using materials available on the planet. His solution was elegant, efficient, and unlike anything in standard galactic engineering databases. Where did he learn these techniques? Professor Zimera asked, reviewing the footage. That is the point, Velterra replied. He did not learn them. He created them. Human brains remain flexible throughout their lives, allowing them to develop new solutions to novel problems. Captain Lisa Parker provided another example. She commanded a merchant vessel that traveled between 12 different star systems. Her ship could dock at stations designed for 6 different species, each with unique technical requirements. She had learned to pilot 17 different types of spacecraft and could communicate in 9 galactic languages. She has been active for 37 years, Dr. Quintar noted. Our most experienced pilots rarely work for more than 20 years before their reflexes deteriorate. The team discovered that Parker was not unusual. Human pilots, engineers, doctors, and scientists regularly maintained active careers for decades longer than other species. They continued learning new skills and adapting to new technologies throughout their extended lifespans. But the most disturbing discovery came when they observed elderly humans. Professor William Anderson was 140 years old and still taught classes at the Colony University. His mind remained sharp, his knowledge vast, and his ability to solve problems undiminished. "This is impossible," Professor Zimera transmitted. "Members of my species at his equivalent age have been dead for 50 years. They watched Professor Anderson work with young students, passing on knowledge he had accumulated over more than a century of life. He had witnessed the development of faster-than-light travel, the colonization of dozens of worlds, and the rise of 3 different galactic governments. All of that experience remained accessible in his still-functioning mind. The research team began to understand what they were observing. Human children were not born prematurely by accident. They were born at exactly the right time to take advantage of the most powerful learning period possible. Their brains developed outside the womb, free from physical constraints, allowing for unprecedented cognitive growth. We have been looking at this backwards, Velterra explained to her team. We assumed early birth was a weakness that humans had somehow overcome. But early birth is their greatest strength. It allows them to adapt to any environment, learn any skill, and survive challenges that would destroy other species. Dr. Quintar processed this information with growing alarm. You are describing a species that gets stronger over time instead of weaker. A species that accumulates knowledge and experience across lifespans that dwarf our own. The implications were staggering. Humans were not the vulnerable creatures they appeared to be. They were the most successful evolutionary experiment in galactic history, disguised as helpless infants who needed protection. We must report these findings immediately, Velterra decided. The entire galaxy needs to understand what humans really are. As they prepared to leave New Yorkshire Colony, the research team knew they had uncovered a truth that would change everything. The species everyone thought needed help was actually positioned to outlive and outthink them all. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime had never seen such a gathering. Representatives from 47 different species filled the massive amphitheater, their various breathing apparatus and environmental suits creating a symphony of mechanical sounds. Dr. Velterra stood at the central podium, her scaled hands trembling slightly as she prepared to deliver the most important presentation in galactic history. The holographic displays around the hall showed charts and data that had taken her team 6 months to compile. Every eye, sensor, and optical organ in the audience focused on her as she began to speak. "Colleagues," Velterra said, her voice carried by translators into dozens of languages, "for 200 years, we have operated under a fundamental misunderstanding about human biology. Today I will show you that everything we thought we knew about this species is wrong." A ripple of interest moved through the crowd. Ambassador Kethmar from the Draconian Empire leaned forward in his massive chair. Dr. Hexiona from the Crystal Worlds adjusted her optical sensors for better focus. Even the ancient representatives from the gas giant civilizations seemed to pay closer attention. Velterra activated the first display. This is the comparative gestation chart for all known sapient species. As you can see, humans have the shortest development period of any intelligent race. Their young are born after barely 10 galactic months. The audience made various sounds of acknowledgement. This was not new information. Everyone knew humans had tragically short pregnancies that resulted in helpless infants. Now observe this, Velterra continued, switching to the longevity data. Human lifespans consistently exceed 150 standard years. Many live longer. This is the data that first caught my attention. Dr. Morgex from the Altarian Council spoke up. "Doctor, we are aware that humans live longer than expected despite their biological weaknesses. We assumed their medical technology compensated for poor natural development." "That assumption is incorrect," Velterra replied firmly. "My research team spent months studying human colonies. We observed their child-rearing practices, their development patterns, and their adult capabilities. What we discovered challenges everything we understand about successful evolution." She activated a video recording from New Yorkshire Colony. The audience watched baby Lucy Thompson lying in her crib, unable to even focus her eyes properly. Several delegates made sounds of sympathy or disgust. "This infant appears helpless by our standards," Velterra explained. "But watch what happens over time." The video shifted to show Lucy at different ages. At 6 months she was beginning to recognize faces and respond to voices. At 12 months she could walk and speak simple words. At 18 months she was using complex sentences and solving simple puzzles. The extended development period allows unprecedented brain growth, Velterra continued. Human skulls remain flexible for years after birth, permitting continued neural expansion. Their brains literally grow larger and more complex outside the womb. She showed brain scans comparing newborn humans to newborns of other species. The difference was startling. Human brains continued developing at rapid rates for years after birth, while other species showed minimal growth once born. But this is just the beginning, Velterra said, switching to new footage. Observe this 12-year-old human child. The recording showed David Thompson working on the family farm. He operated complex machinery, performed mathematical calculations in his head, and spoke fluently with adult colonists in 3 different languages. His problem-solving abilities were clearly superior to most adult aliens. A stunned silence filled the amphitheater. Commander Velsun from the Maritime Corps finally spoke. Are you saying their apparent weakness is actually an advantage? I am saying their apparent weakness is the greatest evolutionary breakthrough in galactic history, Velterra responded. Extended childhood creates the longest learning period of any known species. While we are born with genetic memories and instinctive behaviors, humans learn everything from their environment. This makes them infinitely adaptable. She presented case studies of adult humans. Dr. Robert Hayes, who had successfully terraformed 7 different worlds by developing unique solutions for each environment. Captain Lisa Parker, who had mastered piloting techniques for dozens of different spacecraft designs. Professor William Anderson, who remained mentally sharp and productive at 140 years old. Consider the implications, Velterra continued. Our most experienced individuals rarely exceed 30 to 40 years of active service. Human experts accumulate knowledge for over a century. They build upon discoveries across generations in ways we never imagined possible. The data was overwhelming. Human colonies consistently outperformed other settlements in adaptation, innovation, and long-term survival. They thrived on worlds other species had abandoned as uninhabitable. Their technology advanced faster because their scientists and engineers worked for decades longer than their alien counterparts. Dr. Nimera from the Verdant Worlds raised a trembling appendage. Dr. Velterra, are you suggesting that humans represent a threat to other species? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Velterra looked around the amphitheater at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. These were the leaders, scientists, and military commanders of 47 worlds. They had come here expecting a routine medical conference about longevity studies. Instead, they were learning that the species they had protected and assisted for 2 centuries was actually the most successful predator in the galaxy. I am suggesting that we have fundamentally misunderstood what makes a species successful, Velterra replied carefully. We assumed that being born fully developed was superior. We believed that genetic memory and instinctive behavior were advantages. We thought that shorter lifespans concentrated evolutionary pressure and improved adaptation. She gestured to the data displays surrounding them. Human biology proves all of these assumptions wrong. Being born early allows unlimited brain development. Learning behavior instead of inheriting it permits adaptation to any environment. Extended lifespans allow knowledge accumulation across generations. Ambassador Kelthara from the Meridian Empire stood up slowly. Her people were among the oldest in the galaxy, with a civilization spanning thousands of years. Doctor, you are describing the most dangerous species we have ever encountered, disguised as the most vulnerable. The truth of that statement settled over the audience like a heavy blanket. For 200 years, they had viewed humans as slightly clever animals who needed guidance and protection. They had helped human colonies, shared technology with them, and treated them as junior partners in galactic civilization. Now they understood that humans were not partners. They were inheritors. Their extended lifespans, adaptive intelligence, and unlimited learning capacity positioned them to eventually outlive and outthink every other species in the galaxy. The revelation changed everything. The helpless human infants were not a sign of weakness. They were the foundation of the most successful survival strategy evolution had ever produced. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 48 hours after Dr. Velterra's presentation. The secured chambers of orbital station Unity's Promise buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 47 worlds took their seats. The usual diplomatic pleasantries were absent. Everyone understood they were facing a crisis that could reshape the galaxy. General Vaxtor of the Draconian Defense Force stood at the central podium, his massive frame casting long shadows across the assembly floor. His people were warriors, bred for conquest and military excellence. They had never feared any species in the galaxy. Until now. The medical findings presented by Dr. Velterra have been verified by our intelligence services, he announced, his deep voice rumbling through the chamber's translation systems. Every piece of data has been confirmed. We are not dealing with theories or speculation. These are facts. He activated the room's holographic displays, showing population charts that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. Human colonies were expanding at twice the rate of their nearest competitors. More alarming, the expansion was accelerating as older human generations reached peak productivity while other species experts retired or died. Look at these numbers carefully, General Vaxtor continued. The Kepler 442 system was colonized by humans 30 years ago. Today it supports 12 thriving settlements. The Altarian colony in the same region, established 50 years ago, has managed only 3 settlements and struggles with basic resource management. Ambassador Hexiana from the Meridian Collective raised a crystalline appendage. General, surely raw population growth is not the primary concern here. Population growth is only the beginning, Vaxtor replied grimly. He switched to economic projections that painted an even more disturbing picture. Human-controlled trade routes now represent 43% of all interstellar commerce. 20 years ago they controlled less than 15%. The economics were undeniable. Captain John Stevens had been operating merchant vessels for 67 years, building trade relationships and accumulating knowledge that gave him enormous advantages over competitors. His shipping company now dominated 3 entire sectors, not through military force or technological superiority, but simply because he had outlived and outlearned everyone else. Stevens has personally negotiated with 4 different galactic trade federations, General Vaxtor explained. He witnessed the collapse of the Centauri commercial empire and learned from their mistakes. He adapted to new regulations that destroyed other companies. His experience spans 3 generations of normal alien lifespans. The military implications were even more troubling. Admiral Kethmora from the Crystal Worlds accessed her own intelligence files. Human military officers serve active duty for periods that exceed our entire species' careers. Commander Sarah Mitchell has 43 years of combat experience. She has fought in campaigns that most of our generals only read about in history books. The assembled delegates processed this information with growing alarm. Their own military traditions relied on younger officers bringing fresh perspectives to replace aging commanders. Humans accumulated combat experience across decades, building institutional knowledge that other species could not match. Dr. Quintar, who had served on Velterra's research team, presented cultural analysis that deepened the crisis. Human educational systems are designed around their extended lifespans, he reported. Professor Elizabeth Davis has taught engineering for 112 years. She has personally trained over 15,000 human students. Her techniques and knowledge have spread throughout human space, creating standardized approaches to problem solving that make human settlements remarkably efficient. The cultural implications were staggering. While other species relied on genetic memory or instinctive behavior, humans built cumulative knowledge systems that improved over time. Each generation did not start over from the beginning. They built upon the accumulated wisdom of their long-lived predecessors. Consider the research being conducted on Proxima Station, Dr. Quintar continued. Dr. Robert Palmer has led the same research team for 38 years. His scientists have developed working relationships and shared knowledge bases that persist far longer than any other species can maintain. Their breakthrough discoveries in faster-than-light communication resulted directly from this sustained collaboration. Counselor Zexthera from the Verdant system stood up slowly. Her people were among the most ancient in the galaxy, with civilizations that had endured for millennia. We are describing a species that becomes more dangerous over time instead of weaker. They accumulate advantages that compound across generations. The room fell silent as the full implications sank in. Other species reached peak performance relatively quickly, then declined. Humans improved continuously throughout their extended lifespans, and their societies built upon that improvement across generations. General Vaxtor presented the most disturbing projections. Our analysts have modeled long-term scenarios based on current trends. If these patterns continue, humans will control over 70% of galactic trade within 50 years. Their colonies will outnumber all other species combined within a century. And they will have achieved this dominance without firing a single shot, Admiral Kethmora added quietly. They are not conquering us through military force. They are simply outliving us, outlearning us, and outgrowing us. The delegates sat in stunned silence. They had spent centuries viewing humans as a species that needed protection and guidance. They had helped establish human colonies, shared their technology, and treated humans as junior partners in galactic civilization. Now they understood that every act of assistance had strengthened what might become their greatest threat. The helpless human infants everyone had pitied were actually the foundation of the most successful survival strategy in galactic history. Ambassador Veltheros from the Ancient Collective finally spoke. The question before us is simple. Do we attempt to contain this threat, or do we find a way to coexist with a species that will eventually surpass us all? The weight of that question settled over the assembly like a dark cloud. For the first time in galactic history, the major powers faced a challenge they could not solve through diplomacy, technology, or military force. They were confronting evolution itself, and evolution had already chosen its winner. The Global Conference Center in Geneva had been rebuilt specifically for this moment. The massive structure accommodated breathing apparatus for methane-based life forms, gravity adjusters for species from heavy worlds, and radiation shielding for the crystalline delegates. 6 months after the Emergency Galactic Council session, representatives from 37 species had come to Earth for the first Interspecies Longevity Summit. Dr. Margaret Foster walked to the central podium, her 60 years of research suddenly carrying new weight. The human developmental biologist looked out at an audience that included beings she had only seen in textbooks. Giant crystalline forms from the Altarian systems sat next to scaled reptilian diplomats. Floating gas cloud entities hovered near insectoid delegates whose compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights. "Welcome to Earth," she began, her words translated instantly into dozens of languages. "We have gathered here because the galaxy has made a discovery about human biology. What surprises us is that we never realized how unusual we appeared to other species." Ambassador Chen Wei stepped forward to join her at the podium. His diplomatic training had not prepared him for this situation. No human had ever addressed such a gathering, knowing that every word could determine the future relationship between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. "For 200 years our species have worked together," Chen Wei said carefully. "We have always been grateful for the assistance and guidance provided by more advanced civilizations. We never understood that our biology was seen as a weakness requiring protection." General Kex Thor from the Draconian Empire shifted in his massive chair. "Ambassador Chen, surely your people understood that your infants are born in a state that would mean certain death for any other species." Dr. Foster activated a holographic display showing human child development. "General, we have always known our development pattern was unique. Our infants require extensive care for years after birth. But we never considered this a weakness. To us, it was simply how life works." The display showed human families caring for their children. The extended childhood that had horrified alien observers was presented as natural and beneficial. Parents teaching children to walk, talk, and think. Grandparents sharing knowledge accumulated over decades. Extended family networks supporting the long learning process. "Our children may be helpless for years," Dr. Foster continued, "but they emerge as the most adaptable individuals we can imagine. They learn languages, skills, and ways of thinking that serve them throughout their extended lifespans." Professor Tim Burton from Oxford University presented the latest research on human neuroplasticity. His team had been working with alien scientists to understand the mechanisms behind human learning capacity. The cooperation had produced remarkable insights. "The human brain continues developing well into our third decade of life," Burton explained to the mixed audience. "This creates cognitive flexibility that allows us to master new skills, adapt to new environments, and solve problems throughout our lifespans. What other species see as delayed development, we experience as unlimited potential." Ambassador Veltheros from the Ancient Collective had lived for over 300 years by his species standards. His people were among the oldest in the galaxy, yet even he was impressed by human longevity combined with continued learning ability. "Dr. Burton," Veltheros asked, "are you suggesting that human cognitive abilities actually improve over time rather than declining?" "In many ways, yes," Burton replied. "While physical abilities may decline with age, human knowledge, experience, and problem-solving capabilities often increase throughout our lifespans. A 100-year-old human scientist can be more productive than a 30-year-old, because they have accumulated decades of knowledge and refined their thinking processes." The alien delegates processed this information with a mixture of fascination and concern. It challenged everything they understood about aging and cognitive development. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, a veteran terraforming specialist, addressed the summit's central question. Her 40 years of experience working on hostile worlds had made her one of humanity's leading experts on environmental adaptation. Instead of viewing our differences as threats, Rodriguez proposed, perhaps we can learn from each other. Your species have mastery over abilities we lack. You have technologies we cannot comprehend. You have evolved solutions to problems we are still discovering. She gestured to the diverse audience around her. But we have something you lack as well. We have time. We have the ability to build upon knowledge across generations in ways that might benefit everyone. The breakthrough came when Dr. Andrew Mitchell stepped forward. His 40-year study of alien cultures had made him one of the galaxy's leading experts on interspecies cooperation. He had learned to communicate with 17 different species and had developed translation protocols that were now used throughout galactic space. The Kepler Mining Consortium faced a problem that had puzzled engineers for 20 years, Mitchell explained. The radiation levels on Kepler-88b made traditional mining impossible. Teams from 6 different species had attempted solutions, but their experts could only work on the problem for a few years before retirement or death. He activated a display showing the mining operation. Engineer Patricia Clark has been working on radiation shielding for 37 years. She has witnessed the failure of multiple approaches, learned from each attempt, and gradually developed techniques that no one else imagined. The mining station now operates successfully because one human engineer had time to solve an unsolvable problem. The example resonated throughout the chamber. Problems that seemed impossible to short-lived species could be gradually overcome by humans who had decades to work on them. Ambassador Chen Wei presented humanity's formal proposal. We suggest the establishment of the Interspecies Development Institute. Rather than seeing our extended lifespans as a threat, we can use them to tackle long-term problems that require sustained effort across decades. Dr. Foster concluded the presentation with a simple observation. Our children may seem fragile, but they represent something powerful. They are being shaped by unlimited potential and guided by time. In a universe where adaptation and persistence determine survival, perhaps being born early is actually being born at exactly the right time. The assembled delegates understood they were witnessing the birth of a new galactic era. The species they had protected for centuries was offering to become their partner in solving the universe's greatest challenges. What had seemed like humanity's greatest weakness had been revealed as the foundation of unprecedented strength.